corner. Able to stop himself there.
It's gonna sound so corny. I'm just thankful to ref. One of the first memories of wrestling I have is watching WrestleMania 5. And even back then, so Savage hits the elbow drop. 1, 2, Hogan kicks out. I'm like, that shouldn't have happened. And it's very clear to me, I'm not gonna be a wrestler.
Kenny, wait! What?
The crazy thing is, my first match, Teddy Goodz versus Brett Ryan Gosselin. My 900th match was Teddy Goodz versus BRG.
What a lariat from
You know, like an hour and a half notice, I realized I'm reffing Teddy Goodz and Matt Cardona. Ever since high school, all through my adult life, I got really bad anxiety. And wrestling actually cured me of that.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Another episode of Best for Business. Now, when I established the plan, we're going to do all refs of 1 month in October. I locked down 2 refs. One was last week's Tony P, and this week's Scott Robinson. Scott, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Coach. I never thought that I would get asked to do a podcast, so I'm super stoked. I see what you've been doing, and I'm glad you talked to Tony because he's the man, so I'm ready to get into it. I'm going to answer as honestly as I can, probably without, naming names, but I'll get into whatever situation you want to bring up, and let's go for it.
Nice, nice. It's always a pleasure getting to work with you. Even the first show I've ever commentated, you were one of the referees for, but I don't think I've ever asked you, what was like that moment you got into wrestling and then even indie wrestling?
So I'm a bit older than you, and by a bit, I mean a lot. So one of the first memories of wrestling I have is watching WrestleMania 5 with my dad, Savage Hogan.
Nice.
And even back then, so Savage hits the elbow drop. 1, 2, Hogan kicks out. I'm thinking to myself, as a little kid, I'm like, that shouldn't have happened. so as as a young kid, I always kind of watched it. And when I was a senior in high school, that was like the peak up until you could argue now. Like that was like Attitude Era, Monday Night War. So my friends and I actually started a backyard federation.
Oh yeah.
We wrestled on a trampoline. We did the whole thing, hitting each other over the head with cookie sheets, a tangerine box. Someone hit me over the head one time. It hit my head. The bottom flew out. Using like Nintendos, all sorts of stuff. And even through college and after college, I always followed it. That was that long stretch where it was just WWE on TV. So I started to get into Ring of Honor a little bit. I actually went to a couple of Ring of Honor shows back in probably 2007, 2008. And then I was living in California for a while.
Wow.
So I lived there for a while, and I actually was watching Lucha Underground.
Oh, I love that. So
that was my jam, man. And I'm so happy that so many of those workers are now in either WWE or AEW, like they, full-time, making a living off it. So, it's been a part of my life the entire time. And when I moved back east, I was just kind of floundering. I didn't really have like a hobby or anything like that. And on a whim, I just randomly Googled, wrestling schools in the area.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know that the Lockup Academy in Fall River, Massachusetts was having an open house like 3 weeks later. So this is kind of a trend in my wrestling career about timing.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about is about timing. So I go to the open house, and it's very clear to me. I'm not a big dude, a little older. Started even running the ropes, taking some bumps. I quickly realized I'm not going to be a wrestler.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty early on. So I asked them, do you guys have, any refs at the school? They said no.
Wow.
Like a light bulb, right? Again, timing. So I started, going to class for about 2 to 3 weeks, and I go to my very first. It was Top Rope Promotions, my very first show, doing ring crew. I'm all excited, nervous, whatever. So Ryan Waters comes up to me and he says, "Hey, do you want to ref tonight?"
Your first one?
It was my first show.
Wow.
My first show I went to for them. I had been training for about 3 weeks. Now, a part of me was thinking, again, I've been watching wrestling my whole life. I kind of know the deal. So I thought, and I'm like, sure. Didn't have a ref shirt. Didn't have pants. I went to Dick's. I went to all these stores, bought stuff. And my very first match, I think it was the Kowalski Cup that they do every year.
Nice.
Tournament. My first match, Teddy Goodz versus Brett Ryan Gosselin.
Oh, that's an easy night.
Right?
Yeah.
So one thing that, like I said, I had been in class and kind of reffing. The one thing right off the bat that you don't notice, even if you're sitting front row at a show, is how fast these wrestlers move. So one of the biggest things as a referee, honestly, this is going to sound kind of funny, is just getting out of the way.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I really struggled with early on is because I was taking some moves in training, so I kind of knew, this guy's going to hook him here. Maybe he's going to go for a suplex, so I have to move here. It was just being in the right spot at the right time. So that was kind of my first real introduction to actually being a referee. Like I said, we did this stuff in high school. That was just kind of for fun. So yeah, that was trial by fire for sure.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about backyard wrestling, did you have any backyard names?
So a lot of the guys just made up first and last names. My name was Nick Longwell.
Oh wow!
Couldn't tell you why. Couldn't tell you why. We had one guy. He called himself Tony Jabroni, and he wore like a jumpsuit, and he was the janitor, but he was also the wrestler. So like I said, he would use sheetrock, all these weapons. So he would come in the ring in between each match with a broom. Sweep. I think he's a kid at Creative Pro actually called the Sweeper.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So this was probably before this kid was even born.
Wow.
So but we actually put on some shows. We had music, the whole deal. So
nice.
And the funny thing is, we called ourselves Elite Wrestling. Nice. So that name would obviously catch on about 20 years later.
Wow, you had all the ideas back then.
Yeah.
So, and also being in California, did you go to the the Temple for Lucha Underground at all?
I didn't. So I went to PWG at Reseda before they moved to Los Angeles. This was right at the point where Pro Wrestling Guerrilla was making the jump into semi-mainstream, at least for the area. Yeah. I think that show I went to, I think almost every person on that card was eventually hired by WWE. Wow. Or AEW. But right after that is when tickets would go on sale. You couldn't get tickets. Yeah. So Lucha Underground, I think it was in the second season, because I started watching the first season. They already taped the first season. The second season, I was thinking to myself, they tape a bunch of these in a night. Oh yeah. I loved it so much that I loved the finished product. Obviously, so many of the matches were unbelievable. Oh yeah. That sheen, those vignettes that they had. Oh yeah. To me, that would almost be like going to watch a TV show get filmed. Kind of like that. So I never did make it to the Temple, but I don't regret it because I just love tuning in every week and watching that. Yeah. So you sent me a sheet of all the matches you've done. I believe you're up to, is it 279 shows? I think it's about 260 shows. How many matches? Because there wasn't numbered on there. I'm over 900. Wow. So, now, all right, you go. But the crazy thing is, I told you my first match was Teddy Goodz versus BRG. Yeah. My 900th match was Teddy Goodz versus BRG.
Was it Cisco's or the one before that?
That was Cisco's.
Wow.
That was the one that was the one we just did. So I'm just over 900, and that's like give or take. I think some of those might, you count it as like, you're in the ring, you ring the bell, and a guy like gets disqualified right away, or there's like a run-in or something. It's like more like an angle rather than a match. So 900 is kind of loose, but that's pretty much where I'm at.
So what do you think is the biggest difference? I was going to say the match you just had from Catch Point and the Batari, but BRG and Teddy Goodz is close enough. What do you think was the biggest difference so far as Scott Robinson, the ref, from the first match you reffed, 2019 BRG and Teddy Goodz, to 2024 BRG and Teddy Goodz?
Well, I think it's just the first match. I was just deer in the headlights, just trying to get through it and trying not to screw up. I think it was a combination because it was those two. I've worked with them extensively over the years, so that comfort level was extremely high. And it's also just like we talked about the number of matches I've had. It's just the reps,
right? Yeah.
So I know where to be. I used to get really. I grew up ever since high school, all throughout my adult life. I got really bad anxiety, and wrestling actually cured me of that.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I would keep going out in front of people, and eventually, like, that anxiety went away, and it was more a feeling of wanting to make sure that the wrestlers involved had the best match possible, and that's always my goal as a referee.
Nice.
So the biggest difference is just the comfort level, and then also just enjoying it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So another thing I'm curious, I didn't even ask you about this one. I was watching back the first ever live pro wrestling show. This is the first time I've ever met you. And when they announced the referees, you get booed, and you still do to this day. So what happened?
So it's kind of a long story. So reffing in towns like Brockton, Fall River, New Bedford, some of the fans aren't smart.
Yeah.
Fans.
Okay.
They still are totally like living and dying by the good guys winning and the bad guys losing. So I kind of had a stretch where I was reffing a lot of matches where there weren't clean finishes. So it was a lot of cheating, a lot of things like that. Where technically I was doing what I was supposed to do, like kayfabe wise.
Yeah.
But to them, it's like, this guy sucks. He's always missing, guys cheating and, weapons and stuff like that. So it just kind of became a thing where it was the same fans going to a lot of these shows, and they would announce me, and I would get booed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So after all of these years and all these matches you have, is there like a favorite style you have of reffing, whether it's like singles, tags, scrambles? Is there something that's like your bread and butter that you really do like?
Honestly, I'm this is gonna sound so corny. I'm just thankful to ref, man. Like, I don't really prefer like the deathmatch style.
Oh yeah, a lot of people say that.
Street fights are a little different, but like when there's like glass or like barbed wire or stuff like that, that's not really my bag. But yeah, I'll do a singles, I'll do a triple threat, I'll do an 8-man tag.
Nice.
I mean, I like doing it all.
Yeah. So I was going through the matches. It might have taken me like 2 hours to go through every one of your matches.
Yeah, I should just sent you like.
No, that was perfect, because a lot of these matches, like I went back and watched and I saw your reffing. So the first one we talked about, Teddy Goodz versus Matt Cardona. Tell me about that match.
So again, this goes back to timing. So I was doing ring crew. This was a Beyond Wrestling show. I had never worked a Beyond Wrestling show before. I had been to a couple in the past. So I was just doing ring crew. But they always say, whether you're a ref, whether you're a wrestler, if you're not booked, you should always bring your gear.
Oh, yeah.
So I did have my gear bag with me, and, we had already set up the ring. The card was already out. I don't think doors were open yet, but Drew Cordero, the promoter, and Teddy came up to me and they said, do you have your gear? And I said, yeah, like, we need a ref for the Teddy Cardona match. So I was like, oh, is it going to be like the ref gets knocked out and you want me to run in? And they're like, no, you're the first ref.
Wow.
So on, like an hour and a half notice, I realize I'm reffing Teddy Goodz and Matt Cardona.
Nice.
So in typical Matt Cardona fashion on the indies,
Oh yeah,
familiar. It's not just a straight, lock up and let's get some moves. There's tons of moving pieces.
yeah.
And pieces, literally, they were using wrestling figures because of, Teddy has Kojo's Toy World, and
Oh yeah.
obviously Cardona has the podcast and that whole deal, which he's done a fantastic job of cultivating. So Mark Sterling was out there. I think I got bumped. I think Kathleen came out at one point. So that to me, again, it was timing. I thought that was more deer in the headlights for sure. That was November of 21. So I still didn't have a ton of matches under my belt at that point. But I thought I did a great job, and I obviously did a good enough job that Drew, brought me back, and that bled right into the start of Wrestling Open.
Wow, that's right. So when did they start? What year was it? It was the beginning of the year. I remember that.
So Wrestling Open started, technically it started on January 1st of 2022 because at the White Eagle in Worcester, they usually have what's called the Restival.
Oh, they did like a trial show or something, right?
Well, yeah, so they called it a soft open. We originally weren't even supposed to be on that weekend. It was supposed to be another promotion, but again, that was when COVID was still like really, really heavy. And unfortunately, one promotion had to pull off the show. So with the format of Wrestling Open, we could book anyone. Because the idea when Wrestling Open started was that it was kind of like an open mic night for wrestlers.
Okay, yeah.
So wrestlers would sign up, and then the matchmakers would just I want to see this guy wrestle this guy, I want to see this girl wrestle this girl. So we called it Wrestling Open, but because we didn't really have an identity yet. So we just had like random matches. So that was the soft open. So I was on the very first open show, and then that Thursday was the actual first episode, so to speak, for Wrestling Open.
Now, being a part of Wrestling Open, how different is it, or in your perspective, to having a show like Open where it's multiple shows that can lead to, like, say, a Beyond Wrestling show, where there's other companies like Super Show or Live Pro that's just like that one show every month?
I'll tell you, I am so lucky. The reason why I have 900 or whatever matches is because I'm at Wrestling Open every single week.
Nice.
So what the idea that I think what Drew and some of the other people who kind of came up with the idea was that, a lot of the people on Wrestling Open were either, wrestlers who had been in the area for a little bit, but haven't had a lot of opportunity, or up and coming wrestlers just trying to get bookings.
Yeah.
One great example is the Miracle Generation, Dustin and Kylon. They were going to, I think it was uncharted territory at the time because Beyond was still running their weekly show there.
Yeah.
They would go and do ring crew.
Wow.
So they, they put in the work, they got the attention, and they were, an absolute mainstay of Wrestling Open. So to have the shows every week, again, like going back, I think the idea was to give some of these young guys reps.
Right,
and then move them up to the Beyond Super shows. Now, what happened with Wrestling Open, because of all the hard work of everyone involved, we kind of actually, I say we, but Wrestling Open kind of has their own PLEs now.
Yeah.
So for example, this Thursday we have a show called No Respect. So Wrestling Open evolved from, like I said, it was kind of like an open mic night. You would see different wrestlers every week. It evolved into, there's a core roster. We still bring in random wrestlers all the time. We had 1 week, I think it was a WrestleMania week this year. We had 3 French wrestlers.
Wow.
They were from France. They came here. They did some shows around Mania, and they got on Open. I mean, I'll probably never see these people again.
Yeah.
But it was great to meet them, and I got to work Ichiban and this guy Aigle Blanc, which in French is actually the White Eagle, which is hilarious.
Wow. At the White Eagle?
At the White Eagle.
Nice.
So so that's what's cool about Open. It's not just the amount of matches that I've had there. It's the wide variety of wrestlers that I've gotten to work with. So it started off with the weekly shows, and now, it's Beyond Super shows still, but now Wrestling Open also has kind of like the PLE format.
Yeah. And so to go with that, on Thursday a few months ago, they didn't have a wrestling open. They had American Rana. Now, one of the guys I had on a few months back, I think really started to boost my podcast, was Donovan Dijak. And he talked about this being one of his favorite matches, one of his first like 20-minute matches. And like, I forgot how long it was. So him and Aaron Rourke, you're a part of. Tell me about that one.
So, not to sound like a broken record, but it's all about timing.
Mhm.
So, Dijak's contract ran out. 2 days later, we had a spot on the show because Aaron's opponent actually got hurt.
That's right. I remember doing predictions online, and yeah, that's right.
So, luckily, Dijak has quite the history at Beyond Wrestling, and is from the Worcester area, so got slotted in. And it's just one of those things where a week before, if you told me I was going to ref a Donovan Dijak match next week, I'd be like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But WWE's loss was the independent wrestling scene's gain. Aaron was phenomenal in that match. Dijak, obviously, like you said, he was obviously chomping at the bit to have a longer match because he wasn't afforded that opportunity very often in WWE. He had some of those NXT matches with Keith Lee and stuff like that, but it was phenomenal, and it was so cool. During his entrance, Aaron comes out. He has this unbelievable entrance.
Oh, he always does.
Like a showman. So Dijak comes out. And this was one of the first times in my career where I just stopped. Like, I just took a breath. I watched this huge dude, the duster, the shades, walk out. Crowd is going insane.
Yeah.
And I see this guy. I was like, man, this is cool.
Yeah.
So I really took that moment to appreciate how lucky I was to be there. I know I worked hard, but that was one of those things that just fell into our lap, and I'll never forget that match.
Nice. Another one was it happened in, I believe it was March. I forgot the name of the show, but there was a few matches I think you got to ref. I think it was what is Beyond Wrestling, was it the biggest show they've ever had?
So that was at the Harpoon Beer Fest in Boston.
So Ichiban and Cruel, I know you ref, but did you do a few more for that show?
I actually did Aaron Rourke versus Chris Statlander.
Wow.
Which was unbelievable. And I also did, again, wrestling's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Because I could do a match, Cruel versus Ichiban, right? Easy. Good versus evil. Monster versus, the ninja.
Yeah.
Chris Statlander and Aaron Rourke. Great friends in real life trying to one-up each other. Then I do Teddy Goodz and Sidney Bakabella in a handicap match against Love Doug.
Yeah, that's right.
All in the same show. Like how can you not love that? And it was in this gigantic tent. It was in March, so luckily it was heated. And I think they said the final number of the festival was like 2,200 people. I don't know if all those people were in the tent at the same time watching us.
Yeah,
because it was this whole big thing. But that was definitely the biggest crowd I've ever refed in front of, and some of the biggest matches I've done as well.
Yeah. And then to go with that, we talk about big matches. American Rana from last year, main event, Alec Price and Matt Tremont, right? And you get to ref that one, right?
Yep. So this was when Alec won the IWTV title, which I had worked with Alec quite a bit between Open and Beyond. So more than anything, it was cool for me to count the 3 and hand him the title.
Yeah.
He works so hard.
Yeah.
Like this is going to sound kind of I don't think people they realize how hard these kids work. And he puts his entire body and soul into every single match. Not to say that other guys don't or girls don't.
Yeah.
So that one was a little lighter on the death match. There was a no DQ. I think we used cinder blocks in the finish.
Yeah.
But that was great for me because it was just kind of Alec being rewarded for his hard work. IWTV, that was a big deal for them. Taking it off someone established like Matt, giving it to Alec, who had a fantastic run. That was special. I think a lot of the enjoyment I get from reffing these matches, I think we're going to talk about a couple more, but like the Aaron Rourke against Dijak, Alec against Tremont, seeing these younger guys rise to the occasion and completely blow expectations out of the water, that's so fulfilling for me. Because like I said, my entire goal whenever I step into a wrestling ring is to make sure whatever vision these wrestlers have, for me to do whatever I can to help them with that.
Nice. Yeah, and then we're talking about showcasing some of the best guys and some of the, like you said, some of those guys rise to the occasions. One of the matches that stood out to me, I think it was last year, Fancy Ryan Clancy against Zack Sabre Jr. You get to be a part of all these star-studded matches.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been so many that so Bill Thompson and Tyler Calloway, that are the two refs that ref with me at Open and do most of the Beyond shows. We really try to kind of spread the wealth, so to speak. But I actually do the referee assignments.
Okay,
yeah. A little bit. So a couple of these, the Zack Sabre Jr. match in particular, I was thinking, yeah, I think I might take this one because am I going to ref Zack Sabre Jr. ever again?
Yeah,
probably not.
Yeah,
but Clancy at that point, I mean, right now he's hit his stride so much. He's putting on great matches every single time he's in the ring. But that was one where, obviously, if you know anything about Zack Sabre Jr., the ground game and the submissions, you have to be paying attention literally 100% of the match. You can't take a second off if you're wrestling this guy, because the way he can get into a pin or into a submission, I was so proud of Clancy. He was toe-to-toe with Zack Sabre. I mean, he didn't pick up the win, but I talking to Zack after, he's like, this kid's gonna be good.
Nice.
So that was a lot of fun. And I think another thing too, like I said, like Dijak is this huge dude, and when I was talking earlier about how fast they are, you really don't know how big some of these wrestlers are until you're in the ring with them. Zack Sabre Jr., I don't think he was ever really considered. I know he just won the G1, which is tremendous, but I don't think he was ever really necessarily billed as a heavyweight per se. He's not a main event wrestler, but he's huge. I mean, he's not like jacked.
No, height wise,
but I think he's at least like 6'3".
Wow.
6'4". That's another thing that really you kind of have to take a step back for a second and realize, like, man, because our rings, I'm usually in like a 16 by 16 or maybe an 18 by 18. So it can get pretty cramped in there, even in a singles match.
What's the height difference with him and Clancy?
I think Clancy's probably about 5 inches, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
If I had to guess. But the thing with Sabre, though, is he keeps so much stuff on the mat that a lot of times his height doesn't really play into his favor. So I think the discrepancy there wasn't like a cruel Ichiban situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then talking about another test for a guy that's been working hard, TJ Crawford against Josh Alexander. I know that was a big one for TJ. I just watched the match yesterday, but you were a part of that one too. You got kicked in the face.
That was dope. TJ in Beyond and Wrestling Open and some of the other promotions he's working with, if you'll notice, he's getting a lot of these high profile matches, and that's not by accident. Like you said, he works so hard. He's so precise. So in the ring, he could easily be one of those guys or girls that's just like, I'm an in-ring technician.
Yeah.
His personality is so larger than life. He's so great about playing to the fans and getting them riled up, because I've only really worked with him mostly as a heel.
Yeah.
But that match in particular, another kind of like size differential a little bit, but with TJ's strikes, it wasn't something that really stood out. I mean, Alexander is a beast.
Oh yeah.
And in that match, I actually took TJ's finish.
Yeah.
As a ref bump. But again, like, I don't know how much we can really take back the curtain here, but he hit me just enough in the face that I felt it, and I didn't go too early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was literally, and this was after 15 minutes in the ring with Josh Alexander. Like, that's how good TJ is.
Nice.
So, again, the overall theme of these matches you're bringing up, I said it before, it's seeing these younger guys that either haven't been signed or haven't been given opportunities in other places that just knock it out of the park. It's so cool to see.
Yeah. So these next few matches, they're not really, I want to say in that category, but one of the matches that I think was most talked about on Twitter when it happened at the time, you were a part of, Sidney Bakabella against Swoggle.
So a couple things about this.
Yeah.
So I had that was in August of 22. In May of 22, I fractured my ankle.
Wow.
So I was out for 3 months, but I knew American Rana was going to be at the end of August. So I told my physical therapist, I'm like, I don't care what needs to happen. I need to work that show. I didn't even know what the match was going to be. I just said, I have to work that show. Sidney Bakabella is a genius.
Oh, he is.
His wrestling knowledge is I think in this area anyway, it's unparalleled. He's so willing to work with people, to give ideas. Even not even in his matches, right? The matches he's not involved in. He's so willing, to go over matches with people if they ask. So when it was announced it's going to be Swoggle against Sidney Bakabella, I was like, well, sure there's going to be a lot of moving pieces in this one.
Yeah.
And I think one thing, I don't know if it was how much of a gift it was, but he set up this Rube Goldberg-esque nutshot sequence.
Really?
Where it was like a domino effect of like one guy would get hit, then another guy would get hit, and kind of like all lean into each other. And then I eventually got hit at one point. So we're all down. And then Swoggle comes out in like a motorized, like it looked like I don't know if it was a backhoe. It was like a piece of like machinery, and it was a play on, I forgot what WWE match it was, but someone like used like a piece of equipment to like lift the ring.
Lesnar and Roman, I think it was SummerSlam.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he does that, and we all like, fall. That's one of those things where, again, wrestling's so cool because I think another match I did in that card was like Rex Lawless versus Ryan Gosselin.
Oh wow, yeah.
Behemoths just beating the crap out of each other. And then I get to ref Sidney Bakabella versus Swoggle.
Yeah,
so
a little different.
I think it's that variety for me that's really kept me so interested.
Yeah.
In wrestling and keep coming back for it. But that one for sure, that was something. that was a lot of fun.
And then the last Beyond Wrestling match I want to talk about, you got to ref somebody. I don't know. I think you might have done a few matches. Biff Busick, he took on Slade. How was reffing a Biff match?
That dude is so cool, so humble. Obviously in the ring, he's a machine. He's snug, right? He's not stiff. He's snug with his strikes, with his moves. Again, WWE's loss was in the Racine's game, but in that instance, it's only for a short time.
Yeah.
I don't know if he had the idea that he was only going to work a couple matches and then step aside, but I got to work him and I think Wheeler Yuta, him and Dango.
Wow. Yeah.
Him versus Slade. That was probably the most amount of blood I've ever had to deal with in a match.
Yeah.
The Slade was, when I say gushing blood, what was that? It was Eddie Guerrero and JBL.
Oh yeah.
From a long time ago, when Eddie's face is just you can't even see his features.
Yeah.
It's just blood. I don't know how Slade is, like, I don't think he's human. I don't know how we got through that match.
Yeah.
Again, like if you told me, a few months before that I'd be reffing a Biff Busick match, because I was a big fan of his in NXT in particular. I actually saw him live there was one of their PLEs in Chicago, and I think him and Danny Burch wrestled for the tag titles, and I think he actually got hurt in that match.
Really?
I don't know, he hit his jaw. He busted his eye socket or something. But the way he wrestled, you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
Because he just kept going. So I was really, really fortunate to catch Biff before he decided to hang up the boots.
Nice. The next match I want to talk about, Channing Thomas versus Nico Silva, but an Iron Man match. Is this your first Iron Man match you do?
So that was actually my second.
Okay.
And hopefully I'll do another one if I have to. But
yeah.
So the first one I did also, of course, with Channing Thomas, because
Alec Price?
Alec, it was January of 23. So it was after the first full year of Wrestling Open. They did a great job building to it because Wrestling Open, the majority of the matches have a 10-minute time limit.
Yeah.
And that's a shoot too. Like, if we go over 10, like Rich Palladino is there with his like. So
have you reffed a match where it's like he's called it?
I haven't.
Oh, okay.
I think honestly, I think it's only happened a couple times.
Okay.
But we've gotten to like 9:58.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if Rich is like helping us out a little bit or if that's just how it ends. But so they, their first match went to 10 minutes, time limit. Second match, they did 20 minutes, went to a time limit. So I was actually talking to Alec about it. And I'm like, oh, so like, what's the blow off going to be? And he's like, oh, Iron Man match. And I was like, oh, so you can do like 30 minutes? He's like, no, 60. So then I started thinking, I don't know. Again, with wrestling, you never know how long you're going to do it, what match you're going to do. So I kind of like put it on myself to do that match.
Yeah.
So I just did so much cardio before so Channing and Nico, I think it was this. It was, I don't know if it was the same year. It was. I don't know if it was the same year, but it was a little different because the parameters were a little different. So in Alec and Channing, we didn't do any countouts. So they got to brawl around on the outside. With Channing and Nico, we actually did do countouts.
Okay, yeah.
So to me, I think I was mentally more prepared, physically more prepared, but they went outside a lot in that match. So I counted to 7 or 8 or 9. I lost track of how many times.
Yeah.
So, you always think about reffing, you're sliding in for a pin or running to get in between guys. But a lot of it is counting. Because I try to really project my counts, especially if guys are on the outside.
Yeah.
I want to make sure they can hear me so they can get back in, before the 10 count. So that both of those, they were, even though they were Ironman matches and Channing was involved in both, they were very different. Channing and Nico, in a 60-minute match, the vast majority of matches that I work now, guys and girls call the entire thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So they'll know. You can't do that unless you're, Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat. And even then, they didn't go 60. So there's got to be a little leeway there. Like, I had an idea of what the falls were going to be. But in Channing and Nico's match, there were a couple of them where they didn't kick out. So I counted 3, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But then you have to keep track of how many falls does Channing have? How many falls does Nico have?
Do they announce it or no?
They do, but if there's time in between falls, sometimes it's tough. It's tough to keep track of that stuff. So that was one where, in both those instances, there's a lot of communication involved.
Yeah.
Like I said, a lot of performers now, their preference is to call everything. So what I'm doing a lot of times in matches is more just like the counts, giving them time cues, stuff like that. But in those matches, it was like, they hit a move and then they're in the corner and say, tell them this, this, and this.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, that I enjoy that immensely. Like the whole calling it on the fly mentality. Ryan Waters, even back in training, would always stress that. He actually wrestled TJ Crawford one time. He literally just said hi to TJ before the match.
Was this for Super Show? I want to see this one.
This was actually, I think this might have even been Top Rope still. Okay. It was in New Bedford. So I don't even know if it wasn't a Super Show or wasn't a live pro show, the footage probably doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
But they called the entire thing in the ring.
That's old school. I love it.
So that's like, you have to make sure you're listening. One of the biggest things for me as a ref is always maintaining eye contact. Especially in like a double down situation, or if a guy's down, like if I make eye contact with them and they give me a head nod or they start talking, I'll know to go away because they want me to tell something to their opponent.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that's like, again, you said that's old school. It's just kind of like a different way of doing it. But I obviously I love them both. But that to me, because it's so infrequent, I always look forward to that. And I know one of the things you said you wanted to talk about, this kind of bleeds into it, is the WrestleRoulette.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
So this is a Pro Wrestling Super Show staple. Well, I should say this is a Ryan Waters staple. So you see this advertised sometimes where, oh, no one knows the matches. Well, the fans don't know the matches, but, you know, the wrestlers do. This is a legit shoot.
Yeah.
So what he does is, because he calls it a roulette, so he makes these big, like, playing cards. He puts the wrestler's face on the card.
Yeah.
And the ring announcer will go out to the crowd and say, you pick a card, and say, oh, it's Channing Thomas.
Yeah.
So Thomas comes out. Oh, pick a card. Oh, it's Brett Ryan Gosselin. He comes out, and they just have the match.
Yeah.
So they might know the finish, they might not. So that's all communication.
Nice.
So that's always fun, and I think the word's kind of getting out a little bit about it, and I think some of the performers, I think Dustin and Kylon have been in it before, Ichiban. So I think it's almost like a way to test themselves because, like I said, most of these matches are called beforehand.
Yeah.
It's a legit shoot. It's on the fly. So that's one show of the year. Like you always circle it on your calendar just because that's crazy. It's so fun.
Now with that too, I know they do tag matches. Do they just do like tag matches like randomly in the show and pick 4 names? Is that how that works?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one year we did a 6-man.
Yeah.
So and you know it's you know heels and babies tagging with each other, and it's you know how are they gonna react?
Yeah.
So
that's crazy. So another match I want to talk about. We don't really need to talk about the match. I think it was just like the moment. You've been a part of live pro wrestling since the first ever show. So the first ever match was Ichiban and AJP. But for somebody that's been a part of live pro wrestling since the start, what have you seen like the transition of live pro wrestling to that first show to where it is now? And you can even talk about that relationship you have with Teddy Goodz.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could spend this whole podcast talking about Teddy.
Yeah.
He's probably the most instrumental person in my wrestling career. So to see him branch out on his own is truly amazing. I'm so proud of the work he's done because he's been a wrestler for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And this isn't to knock promoters who've never wrestled. It isn't at all. But he truly gets what it is to be a wrestler, to show up at the show early, to do all the stuff, if the wrestlers are, either getting the gear on or putting makeup on or anything like that. So he really has his finger on the pulse of like locker rooms. So there's always been just a great vibe at these shows. Whether it's in front of, that first show was at a brewery, and it was actually outside.
Yeah.
Whether the crowds are on the smaller side, or we did a show this year at New England Vogue Tech, and it was a monster crowd.
Yeah.
So he doesn't phone it in. He always puts cards together that are at least quality, if not above or great.
Yeah.
So I think that's a real testament, because I think some of these shows, these breweries now, there's like how many breweries in every town, right? They're starved for entertainment. So a lot of these breweries will just, we can have wrestling, sure. But Teddy does, he doesn't, like I say, he doesn't phone it in. He makes sure that the pay is good. You get paid before the show, which doesn't happen in a lot of places.
And he sells out almost every brewery and every show he's been doing.
Yep. So I think he was getting his feet wet with the, because he was, even when he was a part of Top Rope, he was booking the New Bedford shows. It was almost his territory, so to speak, and he was at Brockton. So it's not like he was a stranger to putting on shows, but this was his baby.
Yeah.
So those first few shows, I'd say the only real difference is probably just like tightening up some of the production stuff, and I'm sure you've noticed that with the commentary. But as far as like the talent and the quality of the matches, I think they've always been a step above what I think people might expect from like a brewery show. And he still does some breweries, but a lot of it now is like these benefit shows for high schools, things like that. And even that we talked about that place, Cisco's, that show we just did, that's technically a brewery, but that's outdoors. It's on a beach.
Yeah.
So he's able to have like a wider variety than he was when he was just running those shows in New Bedford. So like I said, I could talk about Teddy
Yeah.
for hours and hours. He, you know, he got me that first Beyond match.
Mm.
You know, he's, you know, we talk about, you know, about the different shows and stuff, you know, working with Tony P on the shows. He lets us, he really gives us a lot of responsibility.
Nice.
It's like, oh, like I want you guys to do this, this, and this. So I'm so happy for Teddy. It's sad that he's stepping away from in-ring activity, but he's still going to do the live pro shows. So he's just a great dude. He loves the business, and he loves, you know, working with the talent, and it shows.
Yeah. So I was going through, I found that first photo you posted where you were at the Lockup Academy. You made the jump. It's time to start training now. There's a few of the guys at the Lockup I want to talk about when you started with in their progression. The first one, you got to ref your first match for BRG.
So Brett is incredibly intelligent. He has a fantastic wrestling mind.
Mm-hmm.
And to see his progression, you know, he's really elevated his game. You know, he's, you know, signed to MLW now.
Yeah.
He's absolutely killing it there. He's another guy who I think I kind of mentioned, I don't know if it was about TJ. His in-ring style, and it's just so solid. Mm-hmm. He could just be one of those like technician guys. But his attitude, he can work heel, he can work baby. And now that he kind of latched on to the Barbie thing, and this new King of Kenergy persona has really like elevated him to the next level. I'm so excited to see where Brett's gonna go.
Yeah,
he's great. He's fantastic to talk to. He's always willing, you know, to work through different ideas and things like that. So super stoked for him, and I'm happy I've got to work so many of his matches.
Yeah, and then another guy you mentioned you've got to ref 2 Iron Man matches for, but Channing Thomas, he's progressed so much. I seen that photo of you training at the Lockup to where he is now. It's been such a crazy transformation.
Yeah, and even when I started, he already had a couple years under his belt, kind of like doing a couple of different gimmicks, and he wasn't really sure of his character, so to speak, but he's, as far as like wrestling goes, he's one of the best wrestlers I've ever worked.
Nice. When
he moves, like it's almost like this is intangible. They always say, "Oh, he has it." He has it.
Yeah.
And now with being paired with Sidney Bakabella, that's allowed him to slowly work on his promos.
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh, he's world class Channing Thomas now, and he's just like forced to cut these like long promos. He's worked with Sidney a tremendous amount. I could ref a Channing Thomas match every day of my life and be happy. He's nice. and like, you know, obviously he's a bit of a prick in the ring.
Yeah.
He's the nicest kid.
Nice.
He really is. And I call these guys, I call them kids. You know, him and Brett, and we'll talk about, you know, Kathleen and Waves and Girls and stuff. Because I am, you know, a lot older than them. So he's just awesome, man. I'm so stoked for him as well. He's coming up on a year as Limitless wrestling champion. Yeah. He's absolutely put that company on his back, and just to see this world class persona really bloom. He's starting to get different opportunities. He's working Dreamwave in Chicago. He's working WXW in Germany. I think he's one of those guys where, unfortunately, the business has changed, especially since COVID.
Oh yeah.
It's great that AEW exists and there are so many more, you know, jobs for wrestlers and stuff. But if you look at the WWE product, and particularly NXT and the Performance Center, it's very rare that they're signing quote unquote indie guys.
Yeah, and now it's just college athletes.
Whereas, you know, when I loved NXT the most, that stretch of, it was like, we're taking these old Ring of Honor guys, we're taking these old PWG guys, and you can't argue with the success of that product.
Oh yeah.
Those matches, every PLE they had, it's funny because now that Triple H is in charge of the main roster, what show did they just have? That show in Berlin. How many matches were there?
Was it 5 or 6?
5 matches.
Yeah.
That's what NXT used to do. Because they used to let the matches breathe, because they had talent that could have these longer matches. So Channing's a guy, where if this was 5 years ago, he would have been signed already.
No, absolutely.
But unfortunately, the business it just isn't the same. The business model's changed. So I know he's just going to keep killing it.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether he gets signed, whether some of these guys end up getting signed or not, I don't think is a true reflection of their talent. It's just kind of the way things are now, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then you mentioned, let's talk about Little Mean Kathleen.
Kathleen is no joke, probably one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life.
Oh, yeah.
Not just wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
She has this innate ability to pull humor out of any match, any promo, any situation. Not to say that she can't buckle down and have an actual, like, straightforward, hard wrestling match, but she tries to break me all the time and usually succeeds. You see me laughing at some point in one of my matches with her. But she, again, like, she's on the shorter side. So I don't know if I know Roxanne Perez is the champion NXT. I don't think she's probably much taller than Kathleen. But Kathleen needed to have been hired yesterday, especially for the company like AEW. Her personality is unlike anything I've seen in wrestling, to be perfectly honest with you. She's so funny. She's so smart. She gets it. Another one of those things where, like, you see the hard work. And I just wish she was, kind of rewarded in bigger ways. Yeah. But she's just awesome. And it's always just fun to, like, go to a show and just, like, talk with her a little bit because she's so funny. Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of these wrestlers we're talking about, they're all great wrestlers, but they bring something to the table that's different from a lot of other people in wrestling. Yeah. And she's the perfect example. I know for a while she was doing this YouTube series where she would just carry around, like, this little microphone.
Oh yeah, you were on a few of those.
And just getting people's faces. She was doing a show for a while on IWTV called Crossing the Streams, where she would, like,
they ended it.
Yeah, I think it just kind of petered out.
Yeah.
But that was a great showcase for her to really show her personality, show her humor. So yeah, she's the best. She's so awesome.
Yeah. And then you mentioned them earlier when we talk about connection. I don't think there's a tag team that matches the connection. Tell me about Waves and Curls.
I think they're too nice for wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're two just super nice kids. They're driven. They get it too, right? Yeah. Like I said, it's Kathleen. They can work, gimmick matches or kind of like gaga, ha-ha stuff, but they can also just get it done in the ring. The best part about Waves and Curls for me, you always heard back in the day, there's the Road Warrior pop. Yeah. When the Road Warriors come out, crowd goes crazy. When that Whitney Houston song hits, and unfortunately they're going to be stuck with that song for the rest of the time they're a tag team.
Oh, yeah.
When the beat comes in and they run out of the curtain, legit joy is on people's faces.
Yeah.
Like legit, like joy, not just little kids either. So those guys are awesome. I love working them. And again, like backstage, like I'll shoot the shit with those guys for like the entire hour before the show.
Nice.
They were like on the precipice, but I think COVID kind of messed things up. I know they were working that AEW Dark show for a little bit, and they do have some contacts at both of those places, but it's really cool to see them make those connections with the fans. Yeah. Because I'll work matches. I'm not going to name names, but matches of people who have been on TV before, who don't even acknowledge the crowd.
Oh, yep, 100% agree.
And especially at Wrestling Open and Beyond, there are no guardrails, so the fans are literally
right out in the ring.
The apron. Yeah. So how hard is it if you come out first, waiting for your opponent to come out, jaw jack with they're literally right there. It's not like you have to like yell and talk to people who are like 10, 12 feet away. They're right there. So Waves and Curls, whether it's at Open or Beyond where the fans are right there, or whether it's at a place with guardrails, wherever they work, they make it a point to to get in with the fans. And that can't be understated, because like I said, a lot of wrestlers don't even bother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember. I don't know if you refed it, but the Whitney Houston song is a signature. But for Live Pro Wrestling, they probably did other places during Christmas time. They came out to All I Want for Christmas Is You. And I remember, like, I forgot what I did commentary with. They even said they had goosebumps when they came out with them.
Yeah, I think that was at the Vault. That was Teddy's show. That was a Live Pro show. I don't think I did that one, but you know, the entrance, regardless of what song, when they use the, you know, the confetti cannons. Yeah. I worked a show with them recently where I think it was them against Love Doug and TJ, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And we did a spot where you know, I was down and TJ had the confetti cannon.
Yeah.
He was gonna use it as a weapon. Mm. He's like, what am I doing with this? Oh no, it works like this. And like I opened the confetti cannon like in his face, and that was the finish of the match. So they're all, you know, again, they're super willing to involve referees. Where again, my whole thing about refereeing is not being in the way figuratively and literally. I said earlier, you know, make sure you're not in the way of the guys moving or the girls moving. But to me, this is just a personal preference. The matches I enjoy the most watching, and wrestlers will tell me this. So sometimes I'll ask them, especially guys who have been on TV. I'm like, do you have any, you know, tips? You've been on TV, and I think Dijak said to me, he's like, I didn't even notice you were there, so you did a great job.
Wow, yeah.
Where some referees, I guess you could say that they show a little more personality. If I'm kind of putting it kindly, but but waves and curls and some of these other against like Sidney Bakabella, some of these performers, if they think the match calls for it, they will, you know, get us involved, get the referees involved, and that's always appreciated.
Yeah. So when we talk about wrestlers obviously preparing for matches, walk me through, like, as a referee, like, what techniques to go through your mind, like, what are some, like, the ref philosophies? Tell me about that from your perspective.
So the main thing is, and it depends on how familiar I am. If it's, you know, if it's Channing Thomas match or a Teddy Goodz match, they literally just need to tell me the finish.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's, you know, especially if it's someone I haven't worked with before, introducing myself, say, you know, I have your match tonight. Do you guys have a finish yet? Is there anything you need me for? Yeah. A lot of times they'll kind of tell me the cutoff, or if there's, you know, a spot, or either whether it's a ref bump or, like, you know, cheating and stuff like that. I used to do a lot more, I don't know if you would call it prep, but like I always, on my phone, I always write down the matches and the finishes just so I can refer back to it before I go out. But I used to, now, because I've had so many reps, a lot of times guys are like, oh, can I call you my match? And I'll say sure, so they can get it down. But like, I would rather not know the whole match, because to me, if you're like telegraphing, whether it's a ref bump or certain moves, it's better for me to react rather than like, oh, I know this is coming. But yeah, techniques, like I think kind of mentioned a couple things earlier, like the eye contact stuff. Yeah, is really big. What I tend to do, and again, this is different flavors of ice cream. That's kind of like you'll hear that phrase all the time in wrestling. My personal preference is, so say like, you know, a guy goes out to the outside. Yeah, I'm not going to be right there. I'll let it breathe for a second. I also do that with double downs. A lot of times I'll go down, and if it seems like it's a double down, I'll ask. But if the crowd's up in a double down, and if they're cheering, I don't want to count, because I don't want to suck that energy away. Yeah, you want to milk it in. They're going to start listening to me count. So I just tend to give the wrestlers as much, you know, freedom as possible. Yeah. Both, you know, shoot and work. But yeah, just stay out of the way. Letting moments breathe. Yeah, I think is a huge thing. But then if there is a particular ref bump, I did one that I had never done before. I was reffing Brett Hollister and Ryan Clancy. Okay. Yeah. And I took a Basiku knee from Clancy. Wow. Yeah. Now, the thing with ref bumps, as I'm sure, you know, Tony Pryor already told you and other refs will tell you, is, you know, I did train as a wrestler. Like I know how to, you know, flat back bump and take certain moves. But as a referee, if you bump clean, so to speak,
Yeah.
it's almost like, well, he knows how to fall. You're not supposed to look like you know how to fall.
That's true. Yeah. Like the good perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually went through it a couple times because the spot was Clancy came off the ropes and jumped to give like the Psycho, the Dana Bryan knee, whatever you want to call it. Bacon just drops to his stomach, and I'm standing there.
Yeah.
And I took it. So we did it a couple times. You know, I wanted to make sure the spacing was right. So when it's something that intricate or something I haven't done before, I'll definitely want to run through it or see if they don't mind running through it. But as far as like the prep for the individual matches themselves, I don't do a ton anymore. A lot of it is making sure my cardio's, you know, up to snuff.
Yeah.
You know, I do a lot of DDP yoga.
Nice.
So flexibility, like if, you know, going down for a pin and like, you know, jumping back up, making sure you can kind of you know, move around well enough, and again staying out of the way, things like that. But again, to me it's all about the wrestlers. If they want to involve me, cool. If not, I'm gonna try and stay out of the way as much as possible.
Nice. Now I know you did one for Live Pro a few months ago, but like walk me through the process of when you're reffing like a whole show by yourself, like 8-9 matches.
So I've done that I think 3 times.
Okay.
And I didn't know until I got there, which I think helps.
Yeah.
Because you're not in your head. That's one of those things where I'll get the finishes.
Yeah.
And unless it's like a very specific spot, I'll just ref it blind, so to speak.
Nice.
And that's, again, like that's one of the reasons why you, as a referee, you can't ignore your cardio, because you could be presented, oh, I'm gonna ref with another, you know, it's gonna be me and someone else. Then they have to call off the show. We couldn't get anyone. What are you gonna do? Say, oh, I'm only gonna ref the ones I was supposed to ref? No, you gotta ref the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I actually prefer, I mean, I love open and beyond. I love working with Bill and Tyler, but I almost prefer to work with only one ref, especially if there's only going to be about 7 or 8 matches, because I want to make sure I get my money's worth, so to speak. If I'm going to go to the show, if I'm going to, you know, spend the time, because obviously we're not doing this for the money. I want to make sure I work some matches. So doing the whole shows, and so I did that 3 times. You know, the wrestlers weren't trying to like blow me up.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. They weren't trying to like rib me. They were just kind of going through. You know, the crew was always really helpful. You need water, things like that. So that's one of those things where, again, like it's like an Ironman match, when I wouldn't want to do it all the time. But to say that I've done an Ironman match and B, have Ironman to show, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And then one of the things that we talk about with Wrestling Open, that's crazy. When you said like the first vision was to have like a lot of these guys come in and just throw matches together, to now where they are, they're doing storylines. Like you said, there's big shows for Wrestling Open. Has there been like a favorite story or something that you've witnessed live that you got to ref a part of?
Well, I mean, I can't not say the whole storyline that actually just ended at Beyond. It's with Teddy Goodz, Sidney Bakabella, Little Mean Kathleen, Channing Thomas. Now DJ Powers got involved.
Yeah.
Love Doug was in it for a time. That was over a year. Now, did we do it at every show? No, but there were dips and peaks in it.
Yeah.
That to me was awesome. We've done a couple of we call it steel cage warfare.
Oh yeah,
it's like a war games situation. So I'm not in the ring for that, but that's another one of those things where I can kind of take a step back, and that's like multiple storylines kind of like gelling together. So that's always cool to see. A lot of the Church of Greatness stuff has been fun, because actually they started out as heels.
Yeah.
And now they're babies. A lot of the stuff, it's, I wouldn't even say maybe like storylines themselves, but it's just like, you know, working with like the guys in the Stetson Ranch. So they'll have like story. Actually, one thing I should say is Jermaine Marbury, who 6 months ago, not as a knock on him, no one knew who the heck Jermaine Marbury was.
Oh yeah.
He had a tryout match at Open, They liked him. He started to get put on shows. He had a really great storyline with Brad Hollister.
Yeah.
And actually, he was actually chasing the Wrestling Open title. And it actually ended in a Malice in the Palace match, which, a reference to that old, the Pistons Pacers, that brawl in the NBA, because, obviously Jermaine's the basketball player.
Yeah.
So that one actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that one sticks out because you could literally see him get better every match.
Did you ref his tryout match or no?
I didn't ref his tryout match. But I've refed. I actually refed that Malice in the Palace match. I've refed some of his matches.
Was it Above the Rim? Was it the pay-per-view dedicated to him?
Yeah. I think it was Above the Rim. So that was cool. That was cool to see as well. And again, like there are definitely storylines, but it's just cool to see some of these younger wrestlers grow and meet these and exceed these expectations.
Yeah. So I've seen you ref him, but I've also had the honor to commentate a match with you. And I see for Wrestling Open, for the spotlight matches, you can see you on the headset once in a while. So is that something you also like to do? Because you knew your stuff, man.
Thanks. I appreciate it. So actually, a lifetime ago, I actually have a journalism degree from college.
Wow. Yeah.
And I actually called the basketball games in college.
Was that your goal in college, to do something with journalism?
Yes. So I wanted to be like either a sports reporter or actually. So I should say, growing up, my dream job was to do play-by-play for the NBA.
Nice.
That was like my ultimate goal. Obviously, didn't get there.
Yeah.
But so one of the things that I'm going to drop some names here. And so Anthony Green and Bryce Remsburg, I got to talk to both of them, and one of the things they told me was that the more ways you can make yourself useful to a promoter, the better. So it was a combination of that. I'm obviously not going to be a referee forever.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of thinking about branching out, dusting off the old skills, so to speak. It was just something I was kind of interested in, and I've loved it immensely. So with you, that one match. So I actually reffed a match.
Yeah.
Went down to you, called a match, and then went back and reffed the third match.
Oh yeah.
So to see you now do this at such a young age, like that's literally what I wanted to do when I was your age. So
yeah.
So with the spotlight match lately at Open, the majority of the matches I was doing was with Brother Greatness was on commentary. Nice. He's phenomenal, but it kind of evolved into this rotating chair, so to speak. I don't think I've called a match with the same two people, with the same person for more than like 2 weeks in a row. It's always someone different, whether it's a wrestler who wants to jump on, whether it's, a manager. I know one time it was great. I actually got to call a match with Sidney.
Really? Oh, that's a goal of mine.
Well, because so he, for the longest time, obviously he was, he's this amazing manager, but for that long stretch, he was doing color on all their shows.
Yeah, him and Crockett.
Yep. So that was a lot of fun. And again, it's just a different perspective. Watching the monitor and working in. I think the biggest challenge I still have is like I can call a match okay, but it's like, oh, and also coming up tonight we have Alley Catch versus Gabby Forza.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's an elbow from the top. It's kind of like going in and out of calling the match while also because the whole point of the spotlight match is to get people interested in the show. We're trying to get over the announced matches while not taking away too much from the match that's in front of you. So I've loved it. I hope I can do more. So we'll see what the future holds with that.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do it again. But for Scott Robinson, 259 shows, over 900 matches. Is there a show and like a match that sticks out to you?
Well, we've covered some of the matches that we've covered. The recency bias, the Aaron Rourke Dijak match.
Yeah.
Just because that was one, to toot my own horn a little bit, I just felt so in control.
Nice.
And so comfortable. And working with, obviously it helped that those two were complete pros and had a phenomenal match. I just physically, after the match, I physically felt good.
Nice.
which was kind of cool. So a lot of it, it's more like the experiences of like just being at shows, because I don't exactly have the biggest social life outside of wrestling. So to count on these shows, you know, go and now I've seen, you know, people like Kathleen, like Channing. I've seen them more than most of my friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My non-wrestling friends.
Yeah.
And by non-wrestling friends, I mean none of my friends have ever even seen me ref.
Yeah.
Like my family has, my mom, my dad, my stepdad, and my brother have seen me ref. But like you said, I've done 250 something shows and no friends supporting. So to have that, not, you know, not boohoo, but like that, to have this as something to look forward to. Obviously, I love individual matches. I love, you know, specific shows, but it's just the overall experience, I think, not to sound too corny.
Oh, yeah, I hear you.
But yeah, it's and again, the cool thing about Open is we have that core group of wrestlers, but I never know who's gonna show up.
Yeah.
So it's not like unexpected. You know, we talked some of these matches, like, you know, I reffed, you know, Wheeler Yuta, I reffed, or, you know, Ortiz, Willow Nightingale, Masha Slamovich. So in addition to those, you know, to those wrestlers, as well as like the core group, I'm sure if I went back through the list, I recently Brad Hollister and Joey Janela had a great match.
American Rock, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I think that was just like a random Open.
Okay.
That was the 15-year anniversary of Beyond.
I knew it was a bigger show. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it wasn't Rana, but it was, I think it was a couple months before. So it was like the 15th anniversary of Beyond. So that one definitely stands out. But yeah, man, it's just been awesome the whole way.
Do you have a favorite venue you refed in?
Well, I mean, I'm partial to the White Eagle feels like a second home.
Yeah.
Because I've been there for, you know, so I think we're up to 140 straight weeks of wrestling Open.
That's insane.
And I've missed one show.
I
mean, I was out for a while. I've had the fractured ankle, but I still went every week. Well, I was like working the door. I was, you know, helping out wherever I could. So to go somewhere every Thursday for practically 140 straight weeks, you get used to the idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
But we just did a show at the Palladium.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, and I have a history with that place, you know, outside of wrestling. So that was wild.
Yeah.
To do a show there. Yeah, I think it's probably gonna be tough to top the Palladium.
Nice.
Even if it was just that one show, that was super cool. The cool thing about wrestling is you could call a whole match to me.
Yeah.
20 times. But something might happen in that match that's not planned.
Absolutely.
And you won't know. I actually did I did theater in high school. So one of the things I liked about it was improv.
Oh yeah.
There was a match early on in Wrestling Open. It was RG Rude, who hadn't been wrestling for a while. He wrestled Ichiban. So he does a thing where like he's playing like air guitar. So Ichiban like steals the guitar from him. He starts playing it, and then he like smashes the guitar. So I was like, I could do something with this.
Yeah.
So I kind of I kick the air as if I'm clearing the guitar.
Yeah.
So it's just these little nuggets like that. Again, I did draw attention to myself, but it was one of those things where like you got to use your judgment. And then there was actually Channing Thomas again. Wrestled Fancy Ryan Clancy at Pro Wrestling Super Show in Brockton. Sidney Bakabella cuts a promo. And shoot makes a kid cry. Kid's maybe 8 years old.
Yeah.
He's crying. So it's me, Channing, and Sidney in the ring. And Sidney's like, this isn't good. So Clancy comes out. And I look at Sidney. He looks at me. He's like, "Have that kid be his manager." So this is all on the fly.
Yeah.
I tell Clancy, I'm like, "Hey, bring the kid out." So Clancy cuts this awesome promo again, all on the fly. He's like, "You know, Channing, you have a manager. I think I need a manager."
Wow, that's awesome.
Brings the kids. He stays at ringside. They call the entire match on the fly. Channing wins. And Joey gets in the ring and he starts badmouthing Clancy. up to the little kid. I'm like, hey, come in the ring. So we bring the kid in the ring.
Yeah.
And Sidney's like, he looks at me. He's like, oh, I'm gonna get you. He's like, punch me. So the kid like clocks him. I mean, it's stuff like that where, I mean, that's why I say wrestling's the coolest. Like wrestling can suck sometimes for sure.
Yeah.
But stuff like that, like you can't make that stuff up. It's stuff like that. Like I'll always remember stuff like that. It's so cool.
Yeah. What do you feel have been the biggest test in wrestling for you?
Well, obviously the physical stuff we talked about with the Iron Man matches. I think some of it is actually, again, I'm not to sound like some like magnanimous person. What I touched on earlier, seeing some of these wrestlers bust their ass and not get that, get that step to the next level, not get that reward. To me, that's super frustrating. I mean, I don't have any illusions about getting signed. I mean, obviously, if Triple H or Tony Khan calls me tomorrow, obviously I would say yes.
Oh yeah.
But so for me, it's more of helping to elevate the people that I'm working with.
Nice.
So that's been kind of difficult to because I can offer words of encouragement, but the only thing I can do is help them in their matches and give them advice if they ask. But that just really stinks, man. It's just a huge bummer. I think COVID obviously sucked because I worked maybe like four or five shows.
And then it stopped,
in November of 19, stopped in March of 20, and it was a whole year before I refed again. Luckily,
I was gonna say, what was your first show post-COVID?
I think it was a promotion called APW.
Okay, yeah.
They ran in Newburyport.
Yep.
There was like spread out seating, and I don't know if you remember that whole era.
Yeah.
Of wrestling. You had to wear a face mask backstage, things like that. So that was those early shows. That was fine to just get my feet under me because I really was incredibly inexperienced at that point. Luckily, Ryan Waters, we actually would have virtual class.
Really? What were those like?
So he would have us, come up with different characters to cut promos. We would watch matches and go over them, whether it would be like
that's awesome.
Whether like a classic match or a match with one of the wrestlers that was in class, go over it, stuff like that. And honestly, more than anything, it was just like a lifeline. Because I don't know how many books or movies are end up being made about COVID, but that was just cool to still interact with people that I just been getting to know, right? I just been introduced to these people a few months prior. So we legit took it almost the whole year doing those classes. And then eventually we were allowed back on a very restricted basis back at the lockup. So that was tough. There's not too many other things. I've just been super lucky, Coach, to do this. Like I said, fantastic timing has helped me, but people like Teddy Goodz, Ryan Waters.
That was going to be the next thing. Like, who are some of the people that like you've really learned from?
Learned from a lot of people because there's different things. There are even younger people who are like relatively inexperienced that I'll look at something they do and I was like, oh, that's a cool new way to do something. Obviously, the Teddy and Ryan have been the most influential.
Nice.
And then Paul Crockett has been invaluable as a resource, particularly with the commentary stuff. And and then Drew Cordero, he didn't know me from a hole in the wall after I did that Cardona match. So he kind of let me do that and let me kind of run with the whole, writing up the cards, signing the matches, stuff like that. So those four for sure, but it's Bakabella, Brad Hollister has been awesome. At Backstage Wrestling Open, Pedro Donez, and I'll lean on the that group we went over to, Kathleen, Brett, Channing, Waves and Crawls. I'll lean on them. They always have something to add. So I've been super lucky to deal with the people I've dealt with. There's a very, very, very small list of people who I wouldn't want to deal with again. And I think in the wrestling business, that's pretty good to have.
Oh yeah,
almost like that. I know obviously it's changed from the 80s and 90s and 2000s as far as like, you know, hazing and things like that. I mean, I've been bullied more in, you know, my life before this than I have in wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone's been, the vast majority of people I've come across have been at the very least polite.
Nice.
If not out and out, like people I would call friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been wild, man.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for doing this, but I don't know if you know, I end every interview the same. Obviously, it's not time yet, but the day Scott Robinson decides it's done, decides to retire and call it a day, what do you want your legacy to be remembered for in pro wrestling?
I would want the people that I've worked with to think of me as someone who wanted their best interest at heart, who was you know, down to do, you know, different things in the ring or bounce ideas off of. I mean, it's tough with referees. Like I said, the best referees are the ones you don't really notice.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the best referee of all time is Charles Robinson.
Nice. Oh yeah.
No relation. So I mean, his legacy obviously spans decades. The people he's worked with, the companies that he's worked for. I just want to be remembered as someone who wanted to make sure that the wrestlers always had the best match they could.
Nice. Yeah, well, I've said it. You're one of my favorite people I've got to meet through wrestling. It's always a pleasure going to talk to you before shows, even to call a match. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for everything over these years.
Yeah, thanks, Coach. I mean, I'm so jealous of you, man. You're just getting started in this journey, and you're already ahead of the game with the podcast and the announcing. So I do hope we can definitely get on some more shows soon, calling some matches together, and looking forward to see what you do next, man.
Thank you. And I already told Tony P, like, for your next 900 matches, we'll do this again. We'll do this again down the line.
Sure, man. I mean, who knows? But yeah, whenever you want to have me back on, definitely want to jump on, and definitely want to be down for that.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for everybody for watching this episode. This was Best for Business.